Granada is one of the most visited cities in Spain. Every year, millions of people come here for the Alhambra. They queue for hours, they take the photographs, they go back to their hotels, and almost none of them ever discover that there is a hotel in this city built inside a restored silk merchant's palace with a rooftop that looks directly across at the Alhambra walls that most of the travel industry has somehow never found until today. Let us talk about Granada for a moment, because Granada is one of those cities that operates on two completely different levels simultaneously. On the surface level, it is a UNESCO World Heritage destination built around one of the most famous monuments in the world. The Alhambra Palace complex draws visitors from every country on earth. The queues are real, the crowds are real. The souvenir shops that line the streets leading up to the hill are very, very real. But underneath that surface, in the labyrinthine streets of the Albaicin quarter, in the tea houses and silk traders of the Alcaixeria market, in the flamenco bars that do not start until midnight, there is a Granada that has nothing to do with any of that. A city that has been layered over centuries by Moorish, Christian, and Jewish cultures in ways that are still physically present in the architecture, the food, the music, and the daily rhythms of life. Seda Club Hotel lives in that deeper Granada. The name itself is the first clue. Seda is the Spanish word for silk, and silk is not a random choice. Granada was once one of the most important silk trading cities in Europe. The Moorish craftsmen who worked the silk looms here produced fabric of such quality that it was traded across the known world. The neighborhood around the hotel still carries that history in its streets and its markets. The hotel occupies a restored historic palace in the very heart of Old Granada, small, considered deeply atmospheric, and sitting in a location so perfectly placed between the Alhambra Hill and the Albaicin quarter that the views from the upper floors make you question whether you are looking at a real place or a painting. By the end of this video, you will understand why Seda Club Hotel is one of the most compelling arguments for slowing down in Granada and actually inhabiting the city rather than just passing through it. We make a specific point of finding hotels that are inseparable from the cities they are in. Properties where the building, the location, and the history are not background details, but the actual substance of the experience. Seda Club Hotel has come up repeatedly in conversations with travelers who know Andalusia deeply. Every time the description is the same, it is unlike anything else in Granada. Once you understand what it is, that assessment makes complete sense. Here's the plan for today. We start with the silk history of Granada and why it matters to understanding this hotel. Then we go inside, the building, the design, the atmosphere. After that, we talk about the location in detail and what it means to be this specifically placed in this city. Then, the full guest experience. And at the end, I'm going to share the one thing about Seda Club Hotel that makes it genuinely unrepeatable. The single detail that no other hotel in Granada can offer. That one is worth waiting for. Before we go inside the hotel, we need to spend a moment with the history, because Seda Club Hotel is not just named after silk. It is built on silk, literally and culturally. During the Nasrid period, when the Moorish kingdom of Granada was at the height of its power and sophistication between the 13th and 15th centuries, the city was one of the great silk-producing centers of the Mediterranean world. The craftsmen of Granada worked with techniques brought from the East and refined over generations into something entirely their own. The fabrics they produced were extraordinarily fine, embroidered silk that told stories, geometric patterns of such complexity that they could only have been produced by people who understood mathematics, art, and craft as a single unified discipline. The trade that grew up around this production shaped the physical city. The Alcaixeria, the old silk market that still exists in a rebuilt form in the city center, was once one of the largest and most valuable markets in Europe. The streets around it were organized by craft and trade. Merchants built their houses nearby. The neighborhood developed its own character, commercial, cosmopolitan, and incredibly wealthy by the standards of its time. The building that now houses Seda Club Hotel is part of that legacy. A palace built by and for people who understood luxury as something woven by hand, traded across continents, and embedded in the physical fabric of a great city. When you stay here, you are not just sleeping in a beautiful building. You are sleeping inside a specific chapter of European history that most people have never read. The building itself is a restored palacio, a Spanish urban palace of the kind that Granada's most prosperous families built during the centuries when the city was a meeting point between Moorish sophistication and the ambition of the emerging Spanish Empire. The architecture reflects that meeting. There are Moorish geometric patterns in the tilework. There are Renaissance proportions in the courtyard colonnades. There is a central patio, open to the sky, planted with orange trees, tiled in traditional Andalusian style. That is immediately and completely recognizable as a specifically Granadan way of organizing domestic space. The restoration and interior design were handled with the kind of restraint that historic buildings demand and rarely receive. The choices throughout are rooted in the materials and color language of Andalusia, terracotta, whitewash, dark ironwork, hand-painted ceramic tiles, carved plasterwork in the Nasrid tradition, heavy linen curtains that filter the harsh Andalusian afternoon light into something amber and soft. The rooms are not large by the standards of modern luxury hotels, but they are designed to feel like rooms that belong to the building rather than rooms that have been inserted into it. The ceilings are original where possible. The floor tiles carry the kind of variation that only comes from age and hand production. The furniture is period appropriate without being theatrical about it. There is a quality throughout the hotel that is increasingly rare in restored historic properties. It feels genuinely old and genuinely comfortable at the same time. The restoration did not sanitize the building into a reproduction of itself. It preserved the real thing and made it habitable at a high standard. That distinction is everything. Now, the location. And this is where Seda Club Hotel moves from being a very good historic hotel into something else entirely. The hotel sits in the area between the Albaicin, the ancient Moorish quarter of Granada, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in its own right, and the lower city. This is one of the most historically layered urban environments in Europe. The streets are narrow enough that two people with shopping bags cannot pass comfortably. The walls are whitewashed. The sound of fountains comes from behind closed gates. The smell of jasmine and orange blossom appears without warning and disappears just as quickly. From the street, the hotel gives little away. A restored facade, a heavy wooden door, the discretion of a building that has always understood that the best things do not need to announce themselves, but go up to the rooftop terrace. Stand there in the early evening when the light of Granada, that particular Andalusian golden hour that photographers travel specifically to capture, falls across the hillside opposite. And look, the Alhambra fills the entire view. The towers and walls of the Nasrid Palace complex, the gardens of the General Life cascading down the slope, the Sierra Nevada rising behind it with snow on the peaks even in late spring. The whole composition is so extraordinary that your first instinct is to check whether it is real. This view, private, unobstructed, from a rooftop that belongs exclusively to guests of the hotel, is not a feature that Seda Club Hotel advertises loudly, but it is, without question, one of the finest views from any hotel terrace in Spain, possibly in Europe. The Alhambra from this angle, at this distance, at this hour, feels like something that was arranged specifically for you. It was not, but it feels that way. And that feeling is the whole point. Let me stop here and ask you something genuine. Have you ever had a view from a hotel room or terrace that completely changed how you felt about a destination? That moment where the place stopped being somewhere you were visiting and became somewhere you wanted to live? Because that is what guests consistently describe when they talk about the Seda Club rooftop and that view of the Alhambra. I want to know if you have felt that somewhere. Tell me in the comments. Where was it? What did it look like? I am genuinely asking. Here is the thing I promised you. The detail that makes Seda Club Hotel genuinely unrepeatable. Granada is a city that most visitors experience at pace. They come for the Alhambra. They queue. They tour. They leave. The visit is organized around a single monument. And everything else? The Albaicin, the food, the music, the actual texture of daily life in this extraordinary city gets compressed into the margins. Seda Club Hotel makes that kind of visit impossible, not by restriction, but by placement. When you are staying in a restored silk palace in the oldest part of the city, with a rooftop that looks directly at the Alhambra from outside the tourist circuit, You are inside Granada rather than adjacent to it. The city is not something you are visiting. It is the thing you are waking up inside every morning. The call to prayer from the mosque in the Albaicin floats over the rooftops at dawn. The market sounds from the Al-Kai Sharia drift up in the late morning. The flamenco from the caves in Sacromonte carries on the air after midnight. You are not observing any of this from a distance. You are in the middle of it, absorbing it, being changed by it in the small accumulative way that only happens when you stay somewhere long enough to stop being a tourist. That transformation from visitor to temporary inhabitant is the most valuable thing that travel can offer, and Seda Club Hotel delivers it more completely than almost any other property in Andalusia, because it is not just in Granada, it is of Granada, in the most literal, most historical, most deeply embedded sense possible. So here is everything in one place. Seda Club Hotel is a boutique luxury hotel in a restored historic palace in the heart of old Granada, Spain. The hotel takes its name and identity from Granada's extraordinary silk trading heritage, one of the most significant and underappreciated chapters of Andalusian history. The building has been restored with genuine care, preserving original architectural details and using materials that are rooted in the Moorish and Andalusian traditions of the region. The location puts you in the Albaicin area, one of the most historically layered urban environments in Europe. And the rooftop terrace offers what is arguably one of the finest private views of the Alhambra available from any hotel in the city. Remember, silk history, a genuine palace restoration, the real Granada, and a rooftop view that you will be describing to people for the rest of your life. If this is why you are here, the hotels with real history, real locations, real stories, then subscribe right now. Every video we find another one, the properties that most travelers walk straight past, the addresses that reward the people who are actually paying attention. Hit subscribe and you will not miss a single one. And leave a comment below. Does Seda Club Hotel change how you think about Granada as a destination? Would you stay here? I read every comment and I genuinely want to know. That is Seda Club Hotel, a silk palace in the oldest city in Andalusia, a rooftop with a view that needs to be seen to be believed, and a very specific, very beautiful argument for staying longer and looking more carefully at the places you think you already know. Next video, we are heading to Lisbon and inside a hotel that occupies a converted 18th century palace in the Chido district with azulejo tile walls, a rooftop terrace over the Tagus River, and a story about the building that most guests never hear. That one has been on our list for months. It will be worth the wait. Until then, find the old palaces, learn the names of the streets. The best version of every city is always the one that takes a little more finding.